Good morning, everyone. Cato the Younger says COVID has provided one large Stanford prison experiment demonstrating the psychological effects of perceived power. The prison guards, the governors and mayors, very easily became totalitarian dictators, and many prisoners have passively accepted psychological abuse. Yeah, man, there's a lot of people physically abusing themselves because somebody said masks work to prevent spread of this virus. I don't know. That's not really borne out in the data, but okay. All right. We keep setting records every single day, and we've had mandatory masks for months. At what point? To compare, last year in 2019, Guelph's safe injection site killed 7 people, and this year in Guelph, 15 people have died from overdoses. Right? So the safe injection site has more than doubled the number of people who have died of overdoses in the city in 1 year. Brava, science. So when are we mothballing the program? Oh, it's time for an expansion. That only worked a little bit. We've got to triple the death rate. Right? That seems like where we're going. It seems like what we're doing. Anyway, here's Brian Lilly, and this made me angry when I read it. Months ago, I talked about how they were doing surveillance in sewers, and I said, you're not consenting to that. You're using the sewers, but you're not consenting to have them surveil your feces and then make decisions about the status of your freedom based on the surveillance of the sewers. But that's exactly what's happening. Here's Brian Lilly. He says, here's the wastewater or poop report that Premier Ford Nation just mentioned in explaining why Ottawa is part of the province-wide lockdown. The poop report is an early indicator. It shows Ottawa is doing better in October and had been creeping back up. Yeah, so that's very interesting, very, very, very concerning, considering they're using this report to justify lockdowns, right? Even though Ottawa is doing better than it was, now it's creeping back up. This report says that you guys broke the rules and the COVID's creeping back up and you've got to be locked down. There's nothing we can do about it. The poop report says so. It's not my fault. It's the poop report. Do you believe any of this crap? I don't believe any of this crap. They are lying liars. And they're using information that wasn't talked about in wasn't talked about in the plan. Who consented to this? Who said yes? Please do this silent surveillance and don't let us have any input into it. Don't let us talk about this. And don't let us mention the applesauce and the can of Coke or the glass of Coke that tested positive for COVID-19. Let's not mention all of that, right? Shocking that the sewer system tests positive. Oh, there's more COVID now than there was last week. Oh yeah, how many tests are you doing? Regardless, it's not appropriate for this. It's not appropriate to lock people in their houses based on these I think illegal surveillance tactics. I don't know what Canadian law protects specifically. Does it protect your right to not have your feces tested by the municipality in order for the ends of that test to be to decide your freedom? I think that's probably not right. However, if you brought it to a court in Canada, I think maybe they'd say, oh, well, it's in the public health because the public health says so. I don't care what you say. That's what the courts feel like these days. Well done, Canada. You've taken a trusted police force and a well-respected court system, and you've destroyed it in very short order. Well done. Here's Jason Kenney acting like the Stanford prison experiment guard. He says, we know that for many who are single, this Christmas season will be hard on their mental health. To ensure we're balancing protection of lives and livelihoods, we've made an exemption so single Albertans can join a household for one event from December 23rd to 28th. You get one event. So have you heard I don't know if it's a true story or a parable, but apparently Stalin had to teach Lenin or Stalin, one of them, I don't know which one, I think it was Stalin, to teach his followers. He grabbed a chicken and he plucked it in front of them, and the chicken was all bloody, right? And he let it down, and the chicken ran away and hid away from him. And he picked up some wheat and he put it down to feed the chickens, right? To feed that chicken. And the chicken came over and pecked the wheat from him, and he said, "See," and he picked it up, and it was fine. See, this is how stupid people will let you abuse them and abuse them and abuse them, right? Aren't you happy, Albertans? Your benevolent ruler has decreed that you get one event with some family or friends, but it can only be one event. How are they going to verify this? This is ridiculous. This is completely ridiculous. Jason Kenney continues. This means parents or kids who would otherwise spend Christmas alone can get together for the holidays. To be clear, large social gatherings are still prohibited to help us avoid catastrophe of rising case and hospitalizations over the next few weeks. This is as bunk in Alberta as it is in Ontario, and it's bunk in Ontario, and I'll get to that in a minute. Jason Kenney he continues. He says, for those whom this applies, please take proper precautions, particularly those around 65 plus. Alberta's COVID cases are starting to trend in the right direction. It's our job collectively as Albertans to keep doing the right thing so the trend sticks. This collectiveness, what is the word? There's a word that is supposed to describe that. Hold on, let me think if I can think on it. Collectivism. I thought about it. It popped in there. Okay. Anyway, it's not, collectivism is not what we used to be basing our society on, right? Like, your health is your decision. It's up to you. Like, we have decades of law. The whole Canadian history law is built on individualism, right? Like, you have a right and a responsibility to yourself, not to other people, not to make sure other people are healthy. If you're sick, stay home. But it's not your responsibility to stay home. If you're sick and you're a single mother and you need milk, go get milk. Okay, it's not your responsibility to order in. But now they're making everybody else's health your responsibility, right? And it's incredible. It's a very, very disturbing aspect of this whole. We're the plucked chicken. We're the plucked chicken, right? Here's John Tory. This is very gauche. The GIF that he's using. If I saw this is like a commercial, and I know and I can't stop this. I'm gonna read. Okay, I remember walking through Stone Road Mall when I was a kid, and I saw the posters for Go. I think it was Go, the movie, and they had two posters. It was like a male and a female, and the poster slid back and forth, right? And I was like, man, this is like the future. And now I think that this is like a very post-apocalyptic version of the future. Stay home, stay safe. So this is like V for Vendetta, but this is not a billboard outside. This is a billboard that you hold in front of you, right? And you're addicted to it, and you're like, man, stay home, stay safe. Okay, Facebook friends say the same thing. Okay, Twitter says the same thing. The overview in the Value Village says the same thing, right? Everybody's saying the same thing. This is just this is psychological torture. This is abuse that they are layering down. This is a prison guard abusing the prisoners and having a good laugh about it while he has dinner with his family in Florida or wherever he's going to be vacationing, right? Ezra Levant has a bounty on John Tory and Justin Trudeau for their Christmas vacation plans to snap them, right? Because they're supposed to stay home and stay safe. John Tory engages in propaganda, post-apocalyptic newspeak. Okay, I'm not even going to read this tweet because I've been blasting the stay home, stay safe crap into your head while I've been talking the whole time, so I apologize. I'm not going to read that tweet. It's just propaganda. Here's Cam Guthrie advocating for, he says, I suspected it was going to be closed. This is an outdoor physical education venue that was paid for by taxpayers, and the mayor of the city is advocating for its closure because some people are afraid other people not wearing masks and being overcrowded, despite the fact that we have multiple studies, the Nature study from Wuhan of 10 million people, looking at asymptomatic spread, and the conclusions that it draws are very, very, very clear, very clear. Go have a look. I've linked to it before. I'll probably link to it again. It's all over my Twitter because I don't understand why it's not more reported. I do understand why it's not more reported. More people don't know about it, right? But Mayor Guthrie says, remember when I asked everyone to please follow the guidelines over the weekend so we can keep this open? It's your fault. It's your fault. You prisoners lost the outside, the yard privileges. I saw you in red talking. I saw some rocks falling out of your leg there, Andy, right? Like, you want to build a library? I don't think so. Oh, wait, no, this is Guelph. You can build a library. If you want to fill in potholes, you're the spawn of some other creature or something to that effect. It's incredible. It's incredible. The prison guards are abusing their populace, and that's what's happening here. Randy Hillier says, more local councils are standing up against Ford Nation's inconsistent and harmful lockdown orders. Representatives must be consulted and provided evidence. This cannot happen when there's no data to back it up. Too many have been silent while those they represent suffer. Yeah, man, I'm very disappointed in my city's council, seeing that these guys, the Durham mayors, and I thought it was Dufferin. I think I tweeted Dufferin, but Durham mayors, and even the Ottawa mayor, and even MPs. Now the MPs weighing in on this, I didn't include because they sound like they sound immature. I may have included one. Anyway, regardless, there are multiple MPs that have weighed in on this. I talked about Catherine McKenna yesterday. But that's interesting. The MPs putting pressure on a premier. That's the MPs of an opposing party putting pressure on an opposing premier, especially one like Doug Ford, who's pretty much capitulated to everything that the Liberals have asked. Everything. Like, what else do you want me to do? Chrystia Freeland is my BFF. Quote Doug Ford in, I don't know, September. Anyway, regardless, the Durham mayors are stepping up and they say this. The following statement is being issued on behalf of John Henry, and it lists all the people. Recently, there have been several reports around support of grey lockdown approach for Greater Toronto and Hamilton area. First, let me reiterate that we fully support the protection of our public health. We will do whatever is needed to help flatten the curve, provided the data confirms it for our region. However, recent reports about Durham possibly moving into a lockdown were not driven by Durham region or any of the 8 local tier mayors. We were not consulted, not given the opportunity to comment, yet we were elected by the people, chosen to make decisions on their behalf because we know our region best, and we should be helping to shape these decisions for our local communities. Since the start of this pandemic, all 9 of us have committed to trusting the advice of our medical officers of health. He is there. I want to pause here. I think that's folly. Like, if you say I'm going to blindly trust these people, that is a terrible idea. If you say I'm going to trust and verify, right? They give me information. I'll look at the information and I'll check to see if it matches up with my information. If it matches up and I have a good reason to believe that my information is good and their information is good, then wonderful, I'll make policy on that. If their information doesn't match my information, then I'm going to say, what happened here? And I'm going to wonder about that. And I'm going to figure it out. And I'm not going to go ahead with policy until I have a really good answer or until I have a matching set of data, right? So like, to me, this blind trust makes zero sense. But anyway, I don't agree with that. I don't think that's a good way to govern, but anyway, that's what they've done. So regardless, here he is there, the medical officer of health. Back to the letter. He is there to protect the health of our community, providing advice to elected officials that allows us to make informed decisions on behalf of our residents and businesses and business owners. Yet many people still struggle to understand provincial parameters related to complex medical analysis or why different regions move into various zones. We know that to help flatten the curve, the use of the newspeak is not very good. We need people to stay in their own regions to continue to shop local. Our local businesses are doing everything to help keep customers safe. Durham region would like to be consulted before any decisions are made. Our region is vastly different from the others in the GTHA. I've never heard that term before as well. The mega city now. As the largest geographical jurisdiction in the Greater Toronto area, totaling over 25,000 square kilometers, the needs of our residents and business owners are vastly different from surrounding regions. Based on the numbers, Durham region should remain in the red zone. We will continue to stand behind and support our frontline workers who are truly Durham strong. So it's kind of mealy speak. It's kind of half measures. Like, we don't like what you're doing. We'd like to be consulted. And basically, if our medical health officer agrees with your medical health officer, then we'll do it. I think I kind of read that but they're trying to say it makes more sense for us to make these calls than you to make these calls, Doug Ford. So, but here's how that worked out for the mayor of Ottawa and the public health officer of Ottawa. And it was etches. So I think I was close to that yesterday. I was saying it was the other one, Davila. Anyway, regardless, I thought it started with an E. Anyway, I'm rambling. Here we go. Laura Stone says, in talking points to Ontario stakeholders, Premier's office denounces Jim Watson, Ottawa, and Vera Etches as reckless and irresponsible for opposing the lockdowns. Quote, some politicians and pundits may be okay with body bags piling up on their front doorsteps, but we are not. Now, in response to this, there is somebody who posts Sweden, like a Sweden shopping district, saying, like, here's the body bags that are piling up, Premier Ford. Like, what are you talking about? There's no body bags here. And I retweeted that yesterday, but I think that it's gone now. But yeah, there's not body bags piling up in Sweden. Like, Sweden's all-cause mortality is the same as Canada's all-cause mortality. And, maybe there is something going on. I'm sure that there are stresses in the healthcare industry and stuff, but when you've got apples to apples of the last 5 years and you can see what the rates are, the numbers are, and we're at 80% capacity in the ICU now, when we were higher in capacity in the ICU the last 4 years. So their excuses are very flimsy. Anyway, back to this. Body bags piling up in the street. It's using hyperbolic, overinflated rhetoric to make people afraid, right? Like, body bags piling up in the street, that's a direct quote from, I don't know if it's a direct quote from Ford. Yeah, I guess so, it'd be Ford. Using that kind of language is not done by accident. People spend hours writing speeches, okay? Back to this. They say Ottawa has done a, quote, good job of managing COVID and would have stayed in the orange category before the shutdown. Quote, we know how quickly trends can turn. It's clear that an all-hands-on-deck approach is needed to break the staggering trends. What staggering trends? The talking points also echoed the Premier's concerns yesterday that with Quebec shutting down, there's tremendous risk over the holidays of people flooding across the border if Ottawa stays open. Really? I don't know. We've talked about this. The remarks, however, leave the door open to lifting the restrictions early, saying the measures will be reevaluated throughout the 28 days in Southern Ontario to determine if it's safe to lift any restrictions or if they need to be extended. Again, what are the criteria? Who has set the criteria to bring the restrictions out? They're saying, oh, we might lift restrictions early, but we'll reassess through the day. What led to the full lockdown of like Northern Ontario now? Like there's no justification for it, particularly when you look at the results of the studies about asymptomatic spread. Here's an interesting thread on the number of ICU beds and the number of beds they said they had and the number of beds they actually have. And so here's Unspin the Spin. She says, so, quote, the critical report suggests an additional 25 COVID patients were admitted to the ICU over the last 24 hours, including 5 more in the Mississauga Health Halton Integration Network, where 123 out of 132 ICU beds are now filled. A question, what happened to the extra beds? Am I missing something, or are the beds missing? 18 ICU beds available among 130 critical care beds among the hospitals in Mississauga Local Health Integration Network. So basically the argument here is, in the early pandemic, this is April 3rd, 2020, Ontario needs 900 new ICU beds to cope with the surge in patients, the model suggests. Those models, they've been so right, don't question them. Or the prison guards will get you. Anyway, Ontario will have to add nearly 900 new intensive care beds to its existing supply to be able to handle the surge in COVID-19 patients forecast under the best case scenario in provincial models of the pandemic. The province has an estimated 415 ICU beds available now as the Ford government attempts to create the hundreds of new spaces experts expect they'll need. So this was in April. They knew they needed beds and they knew they needed to create more beds. Anyway, the additional beds would result in approximate total of 1,300 dedicated ICU beds for COVID-19 patients. 1,300 dedicated COVID-19 patients. Okay. Fast forward to December 15th. Now more patients in Ontario ICUs than at any other point during the COVID-19 pandemic. Oh no! According to a daily critical care report obtained by CP24, there were a total of 1,765 patients receiving treatment in the ICU as of Monday, including 267 with confirmed cases of COVID-19. 267 in the ICU. So we're supposed to be worried about that number? That number's supposed to be concerning? Okay. The report pegs the total number of ICU beds in the province at 2,136, suggesting that there is some capacity for additional patients. So the problem here is that there's 1,700 in the ICU, and the capacity is 2,136. And because of the COVID patients, they're worried they're going to get overwhelmed, I guess. But this worry has never been borne out. And if you've spent the last 8 months, and we've been laying off nurses. I showed the report from one of the hospitals yesterday, and then I saw an ad on Twitter like yesterday. I shared the same article with the ad because I thought it was funny, but that the same hospital is hiring nurses, desperately needed nurses. I was like, what about these 97? Did you call them? They probably still live in the area. Right? And it's so funny because this article makes the argument that we just don't have the staff. The beds are only on paper. We don't actually have the staff. So we've gone from a situation where we can't stop we have to stop the spread because COVID might overwhelm our hospitals, just COVID. And now we're at a situation where the regular use of the hospital is at capacity, and the capacity is capped at 85 because of a provincial order. And because they're at capacity, after that, they're going to stop offering surgeries because they want to protect the capacity for the incoming COVID patients. But if you look at the ICU numbers for the last few years, the ICU numbers are such that the capacity is just the same. Hold on, I'll get the ICU numbers just to show you. Hold on. This took longer than I thought. Anyway, the original tweet that tweeted this out is gone. Isn't that interesting, right? Isn't that very interesting? But good thing that I backed it up. Hey, look at that. I don't have the actual tweet. I think I might make an image of this image here, but look at this, 2015 to, okay, I'll shrink it because I'm in the way here. 2015 to 2020. And you can see the number of baseline critical care beds, unique patient numbers, total patient days. Okay, there's more patient days. The reduction in percentage is due to the increase in bed numbers. And I'll get me out of the way a little bit here. There you go. You can see. So in in 2015, we had 1,914 beds. In 2020, we have 2,136 beds. And the unique patients increased by a little bit, but really, not that much. Is this a global pandemic or, regular, everyday, whatever, right? It's very interesting that this is gone. It's very interesting that it's just gone, right? When things are just gone, wow, you don't assume, oh, I guess it was wrong. Unless I can't find a retraction. I was going to say I can't find this tweet, but I'm glad that I backed this up. So I'll make an image of this and tweet it out again, because that's interesting that it's just disappeared. Very interesting. Anyway, back to this. According to, the report pegs the total number of ICU beds in the province as 2,136, suggesting that there is some capacity for additional patients. But Dr. Michael Warner, who is a medical director of critical care at Michael Garron Hospital, says that many of these beds exist on paper only because the overburdened hospitals simply don't have enough nurses and other personnel to staff them. He said that with many hospitals in the GTA already getting overwhelmed, we are now in a situation where things are likely to get worse before they get better. Just to give viewers context, back in wave 1, when we hit our peak of 283 COVID patients in the ICU, there were only 1,300 patients in all of Ontario's ICU. So we're caring for many more patients, and although on paper the ministry may say we have more beds, we don't have the nurses to staff the beds that are available, which is the major challenge, he said. So is that enough to lock down our economy? Isn't that just mismanagement of the healthcare system? Isn't that just not being able to deliver on your baseline expectations? Like, your job is to do X. And if you can't do X, then we need to find somebody who can do X. And saying, oh, COVID though, isn't quite enough. Isn't enough at all. Back to this. It's really the nursing staff that it's in limited supply, which means that elective surgeries and other procedures will be canceled to accommodate all the volume that we have to get through. Volume? Isn't this an awkward, uncomfortable graph? Which volume? What volume are you speaking of specifically? Could you point to the choke points? Because this looks like you should have capacity, sir. Really does. Back to this. The number of patients in the ICU in the city stands at 344, leaving only 63 available beds. Only 63. Fear, fear, fear. Meanwhile, the 2 local health integration networks that oversee hospitals in Peel Region now list a combined 54 COVID patients in their ICUs, including 32 on ventilators. Speaking with CP24, Warner said that he believes hospitals will be able to continue to provide care to those who need it, but said that surgeries and other procedures are now at risk. Liar. 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 Right? And if so, justify these numbers. Justify them, please. Right? This is an interesting little bit of a tweet. I can't see, but here it is. Haha. Ken Fraser, he's an Ottawa Politico, he says, a self-described Ottawa Politico, and he says, I'm a conservative voter, Mr. Premier, but this doom and gloom messaging is over the top. Just spent a week in Cairo, and people there are living their lives. What the heck is wrong with us? What the heck is wrong with us? Indeed. Doug Ford. And Doug Ford is saying we're asking everyone to stay home as much as possible to stop the spread of COVID-19. We need to avoid an outcome where someone gets in an accident over the holidays and there's no ICU beds because they're taken up by COVID-19 patients. Is this enough? Is this emergency enough to lock down our province? Is this emergency enough to shut down all of our businesses? Where's the science on 28 days? Where's the science on if you live in northern Ontario, you should abide by this draconian lockdown? Where's the science, Doug? I don't understand. There's no possible way you can explain this because it's ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. Here's Doug Ford again. He says, our government is taking proactive and preventative action to prevent schools following to protect schools following the holiday break, Starting January 4th, all publicly funded and private elementary and secondary students will temporarily move to remote learning. Nope. Sorry, not going to happen. Learn more. Here's the problem with remote learning. There's never been a study done on mass remote learning of a large population of students. There's no impact studies done on the efficacy. Does it work to teach kids? There's no impact study done comparing regular school to online school. And I'm not going to let my kids be experimented on by this government. You can take that to the bank. You can take your online remote learning and, well, shove it where, and I don't see how nobody's pointed this out to the people in charge. Doug Ford and Stephen Lecce or whatever his name is, have done an awful, terrible job. They have done a very, very bad job. And in not thinking this through at all, I mean, parents have to work still. Who's going to supervise the kids online? Sorry, I don't let my kids watch YouTube that I haven't curated. I'm not going to let the teacher just on a tablet all day. No, sorry about your luck, guys. I think I'll do the education while you guys are too incompetent to get your crap together to handle it. Thanks. And when you're competent enough to get your crap together, then I'll maybe send my kids back with strict. And I wish that we had people who were educating reading, writing, and arithmetic. And right now they're trying to be the moral police. But I guess that's not different than every other public servant in Canada at this point in time. So yeah, Doug Ford, big miss, swing and a miss, failed leader. Here's Lord Sumpton. He's a former Supreme Court justice, and he sounds very He sounds very intelligent. I'm sure that he's very well respected being a former Supreme Court justice. And he says, I'll let him speak for himself. This is worthwhile. The lockdowns don't work. They haven't worked. There's no evidence to suggest that they work. And yet here we go. Double down on the lockdowns, triple down on the lockdowns. And if you suggest that lockdowns are a bad idea, you're a Yahoo you're a dangerous Yahoo, according to Doug Ford. Okay, here we go.
As I said, these people are fanatics. They're only looking at one issue. They're only interested in the death toll and in hospitalizations. They're not looking at the whole picture. These things do matter, but they're not the only things that matter. But there is another more fundamental point, which is that these people have been preaching the gospel of lockdown for 8 months now. We've had 2 lockdowns, we've had circuit breakers, we've had tears, we've had closures, and look where we are now. These people are fond of saying that this is because of the folly or selfishness of the British people. But this is an experience that we have in common with every country that has tried it. Yeah. In Sweden and in Germany, with their famously compliant populations, the results are very much the same as they are here. The fact is that lockdowns do not work. There's one thing that might work. I'll tell you what it is. If we were all to be sedated and locked in wooden boxes permanently and fed by robots through tubes for a month or 2, that might work. I'm waiting for the first scientist to come forward and suggest that.
Please don't.
Don't give them ideas, she says. Yeah, so with a test that has such a high rate of false positives, what in the world is the goal here? What is the goal? Just to break our spirits? You can't have Christmas, but if you're single, you can have a little bit of Christmas. Right? The results of these disastrous lockdowns have been even trades can't get to work. Here's Home Depot in I don't know where this is. I thought it was Mississauga. I think it's Mississauga, but I could be wrong. This guy says, I'm not getting my 2x4 studs, right? So that's interesting, right? Very, very negative when the supply chain is such that you can't get needed supplies. Why is that? There is a reason. It's not incompetence. It's because of, there's a reason. There's massive stress on the global supply chain at this point in time. And I've heard lots of rumors talking about how things are breaking down and it's not good. The warehousing places, the places that used to receive product to then reship the product they're empty. And so that increases the prices at the local level because they become more valuable, right? It's now worth $8 to $10 instead of $2 to $4 or whatever the cost was before. And that hits the people who are in the economy trying to get jobs done, people who are trying to work for people to get jobs done. Your job that was going to cost $60,000 is now going to cost $160,000, right? So just because of material and labor time, right? But mostly material going up. Here's a hair salon that is Boyd's Barbershop, permanently closed. On the window, they've got 146 days open, 7 barbers, 4,222 clients, 0 COVID cases. This is Doug Ford's lockdown, everyone. No science to back it up, none. Yet the prison guards claim that it's all our fault. If only we would listen. Just stay in your boxes. We'll send the robots to feed you. And if you complain about your rights being infringed upon, well then at that point you're a COVIDiot and maybe you need some re-education, right? We're already there, guys. We're already there. Do you think that they're going to let people rejoin society without this very, very concerning vaccine? I don't know. I have a feeling that no. Yesterday, I reported on police who were speaking out about the draconian lockdowns and about the infringement on our rights. And today, they came out with a bit of an announcement saying the responses have been amazing. We've received messages of support from active and retired law enforcement, members of the military, and the public that these agencies all serve. There have been some questions surrounding our authenticity, and we have temporarily been suspended from responding to messages as we are bound by the police services act, there are issues regarding active members making public statements. That being said, we are extremely pleased to announce retired York Regional Police Staff Sergeant Dan Corbeil as our administrator and public face. We are currently reaching out to our respective police associations as well as the media to further add credibility and bring awareness to our message. So it looks like they're going to trying to solidify that. I asked for contact information for the face of their network. I haven't got that yet, but we'll see. I'll have to talk with them. Interesting here, the WHO changed the definition of herd immunity in 2020. 2019 definition versus the 2020 definition. You can spot the difference. The original archive of the 2019 definition is here. This is a meme. Oh shucks. They're not allowing it to load. I'll read it here. There we go. I'll be able to take a picture of it as well for my video. So yeah, wonderful. Herd immunity before 2020. This is the 2019. Herd immunity, as defined by the WHO, also called herd effect, common immunity, population immunity, or social immunity, is a form of indirect protection from infectious diseases that occurs when a sufficient percentage of a population has become immune to an infection during a sufficient or minimum time, which means that a number of immunized individuals are needed for a given time to achieve the goal of collective immunity, whether through vaccination or previous infections, thereby reducing the likelihood of infection for individuals who lack immunity. Immune individuals are unlikely to contribute to disease transmission, disrupting chains of infection, which stops or slows the spread of disease. The greater the proportion of immune individuals in a community during a certain time, the smaller the probability that non-immune individuals will come into contact with an infectious individual. After 2020, herd immunity, also known as population immunity, is a concept used for vaccination in which a population can be protected from a certain virus if a threshold of vaccination is reached. Herd immunity is achieved by protecting people from a virus, not by exposing them to it. Vaccines train our immune system to create proteins that fight disease, known as antibodies, just as would happen when we are exposed to a disease, but crucially, vaccines work without making us sick. Vaccinated peoples are protected from getting the disease in question and passing it on, breaking chains of transmission. So it's encouraging the use of vaccinations and leaving out the human creation of antibodies naturally if you just get sick. So that's interesting. Very interesting. I checked the old original. I haven't brought up the 2020 WHO, so I'm going to have to double check that. I apologize that I haven't checked it before, but I read this yesterday and I thought, man, that's scary, and I meant to check it before I talked about it. So I don't know that that's the current definition on the WHO site. I'll mention it tomorrow after I check. Apologies. Okay, moving on. Ontario Health Unit planned to shut down the churches that wouldn't close voluntarily. You got voluntold. A Southern Ontario health unit intended to use its powers to shut down a handful of churches, including one with no evidence of COVID-19 transmissions, documents show. This is very scary, especially considering my health unit, the Guelph, Dufferin, Wellington health unit, shut down the Mennonites because they wouldn't wear masks. Unbelievable. It's so crazy. Anyway, emails obtained from Southwestern Public Health through a Freedom of Information request show the health unit officials planned to close 4 churches, 3 of which were tied to a Norwich, Ontario Christian school that had a COVID-19 outbreak. The 4th was Almer, Ontario's Church of God, whose pastor, Henry Hildebrandt, had become a vocal opponent of lockdown orders, whose drive-in services pushed the province to ease its initial restrictions on places of worship. Yeah, I mean, scary. All 4 churches received a letter from Southwestern Public Health in November requesting they closed for 28 days on a, quote, voluntary basis. To reduce the risk of COVID-19 transmission, internal emails reveal the health unit's plan was actually to shut them down involuntarily if they didn't comply. Wow, welcome to Communist Canada. Here's an interaction where this person went to a protest and these police are here serving a fine for attending the protest. You are allowed to gather and you are allowed to protest. This is enshrined in the Charter of Rights. These tickets won't stand. This guy calls them Nazis. He says, "Where's your swastika, you Gestapo?" I'm not going to play it. I'll play a bit of it. Here we go.
Yes.
Cost for Styles, Chicago Police Service. It's my understanding that your name is Arthur and your name is David. Can we come and talk to you, please?
No, you can't.
Great. Well, the reason why we're here is to hear about the protest that you guys were both on.
Where is your swastika?
My which, sorry?
Where is your swastika?
My sticker?
Swastika. You guys are acting as Nazis, so where are your proper uniforms?
David, these are for you.
So, who do you are?
I'm looking for David. These
No.
are two
Who,
tickets.
what is your name?
Constable Clark Calgary Police Service, badge is 5060.
And where is your swastika?
I don't have one.
Well,
so
you're
I never
Gestapo,
will.
right?
Okay. You're
You're
allowed to have your
Gestapo
opinion.
breaking.
Calgary police are being put into a situation where they are, in my opinion, violating the charter, the oath they took to protect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Charter of Rights and Freedoms clearly states that you have freedom to assemble, you have freedom to protest, and these people do not have a right to deliver unlawful, unlawful fines, unlawful tickets, whatever. Very, 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 very scary. This is as scary as Ocean being arrested for playing hockey and standing up for the kids who were playing hockey. And this is as ineffective too. Having the female officers who couldn't take the 21-year-old hockey player down. It doesn't, male or female doesn't really matter, but having two officers deliver a fine for attending a protest sends a message, right? And the message is very clear, in my opinion. And it doesn't look good. Doesn't look good for the Calgary police. I think this is a bad look. Bad PR, bad everything. Awful. Good job for recording it, you guys. Anthony Fury says, Germany used their last appearance at the United Nations Security Council today to call for the release of the two Michaels. China responded by making fun of Germany. Yeah, that's where we're at. The UK and Canada reached a temporary agreement to prevent tariffs on goods and services after Brexit. I was at the Walmart the other day, and the Walmart had, usually I buy a kilogram of chicken for about 10 pounds, and you can get, a kilogram of chicken for $10, and you can get two for 20. And they've increased the price if you only get one. If you get one, it's $10 or $11, and if you get two, it's 20. So, and that's been the same for a while. It's been pretty consistent. Chicken has grown around here, raised around here. So they should have access to the chicken. I don't think it's being trucked in from the States. But the other day I was at Walmart. They had no bread, no Dempster's bread, no regular bread, no Walmart brand bread. All of it was gone. The whole wheat, the white loaves, everything, all the bread was gone. They had some of the healthy bread but like I'm talking like the stone cut, like with the big wheat. Like most people don't eat that for a sandwich. If you eat that for a sandwich, it's a very dry sandwich, right? If you're used to Wonder Bread, you're not eating that kind of bread. So there was a couple of bread on the other aisle like that with the bagels and stuff, specialty bread, but there was no regular bread. There was no hot dog buns. There was no regular hamburger buns. They had the big fat hamburger buns. But, other than that, and I know that I'm getting into this, but this goes back to supply chain. And I went to the British aisle, and I was looking for Curly Whirlies. If you haven't tried them, try them. Oh man, it's 37 minutes. And off we go on Curly Whirlies. And they didn't have any because, and all of the British aisles were unstocked, right? Like they didn't have anything from Britain or international. They had stuff from the islands on the other side, but nothing from Britain or Germany or anything like that. Very interesting. But Britain was the most sparse, so that's good. But man, the supply chain stuff worries me. Pierre Polyev says instead of banning CEO bonuses and dividends while companies are on the wage subsidy, Trudeau subsidized corporations while they stuffed $30 million of dividends into CEOs' pockets, taxing the have-nots to give to the have-yachts. This is a story that started with Leon's and then expanded to about 60 other companies, and now, people realize that this is a big loophole that was taken advantage of by any accountant worth their salt, right? Mark Garrison, when we go back to Ontario to finish off today, says, tough talk for a premier who has spent pennies on his province during a global pandemic. 97% of all relief funds spent in Ontario. Okay, so this is, I was talking about earlier, this is a Liberal MP calling for Doug Ford, calling him a thug, right? And saying 97% of all, aren't we great? You don't need those provincial guys. Us feds have got you. We're spending all the money in the world in Ontario. Yeah, right. But I guess that's what we get for electing a thug as a premier. All talk, no action. And this is Dave Aiken. And he says, the Ontario PC Party sends out an email blast to supporters regarding Ford Nation versus Justin Trudeau on open borders, raises questions. Is this about public health or politics? Excuse me. The email is, Dear David Aiken, when you're in a war, you come together. I think you know I'll work with anyone and everyone to win this battle against the invisible threat of COVID-19. But I will also stand up for Ontario families when we aren't getting our fair share. The truth is, our borders are a real problem. That's why we continue to implore Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to take action to secure our borders. After months of pleading with the federal government, we are still seeing tens of thousands of travelers enter our airports and communities without any quarantine enforcement or rapid testing. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to lock everybody down. Back to this. And we're now facing a new strain of COVID-19 coming out of the UK. Ugh, don't get me started on the new strain. Just more fear porn. Garbage. Back to this. Enough is enough. The time for action is now. We need to ensure that the border is secure. We need to be certain that we're catching cases of COVID before they have a chance of spreading in our communities. Otherwise, the sacrifices we're asking Ontarians to make are for nothing. Our PC government has one message to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau: secure our borders now. Do you stand with us? Do you show support by signing our petition here today? So this is political theater at its worst. He's not addressing any of the core issues that the people want addressed. One, they're gone civil liberties. They're completely removed civil liberties. Like, I live in a place where we don't have the call for nearly the stringent measures that he wants to put in. But that doesn't seem to matter. So what are you going to do, right? So he's not called. This is political shadowboxing, right? Oh yeah, we got to close the borders because that's the biggest problem. Screw your business. You've got it. There's essential items. You can just buy it at Walmart. Like, seriously, there are other issues here. And I've been calling for the border to be closed forever. I mean, it makes zero sense to punish Canadians and keep us locked in their houses while opening immigrants with open arms. And when there's a global pandemic, yeah, okay, complete genius, guys. Total, absolute genius. Okay, that's enough out of me. We're already too long. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful day.